You're watching the Randy and Christa Show. I'm Randy Alvarez.
And I'm Christa Orecchio, and this is news that makes you healthier. And our guest today is nutritionist Heather Dane, and we love her. We're going to get you healthier today by talking about how to improve your kidneys and your urinary tract. And I want you to learn a little bit about Heather, so before we start, I want to read her bio. She is a health coach and 21st century medicine woman, which I love. Heather combines ancient wisdom from her Native American lineage with holistic health and nutrition training to offer cutting-edge prescriptive remedies. She has co-authored 2 books with Louise Hay, Loving Yourself to Great Health, and her latest book, The Bone Broth Secret, which I love and everyone should pick up. And Heather's a regular contributor to Mind Body Green, Price Pottinger Nutrition Foundation. She also is a regular contributor to HealYourLife.com, and she has a Hay House radio show, which I was just a guest on, and you can learn all about her at heatherdane.com.
All right, well, Heather, welcome to the program.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Now, Christa was so excited about getting you on the show, so thanks for coming out. Now, you work by telephone, but you live in San Diego?
I live in San Diego, the best place ever.
And you help people all over the world?
All over the world, yeah. In fact, when I first got started in practice, people from Europe were calling me a lot. I had more Europeans than I had from the U.S.
Good for
awesome.
you.
Yeah.
So you have 2 bestsellers,
Yes.
these books. Today we're talking about what? Kidneys and bladder health.
We're going to talk about kidney and urinary issues.
Okay.
And so, Heather, we want you to kind of give us what is your broad strokes, what's your approach to these issues? Because a lot of people have them, even if they don't think they have them, they're marching towards them.
Yes, absolutely. So what I usually do is I look at several categories. One is lifestyle. Now, that might seem a little weird to look first at lifestyle, but usually when there are kidney and bladder issues, it's because there's stress. There's been either a major stressor that has just happened, or there's been chronic low-level or high-level stress that's happening in people's lives. When we get stressed, all of the things happen that can set the stage for a kidney or a bladder issue. So the number 2 thing I look at is symptoms of low immunity. And sometimes these can be sneaky. We know things like recurrent colds, or a virus that just keeps coming back, or sinus infections. Maybe you're on antibiotics all the time. What we don't always know about is that depression and anxiety, mood issues can often signal low immunity and inflammation in the body. Gut issues, digestive issues can signal low immunity. So I look for things like that to give me a sense of whether we need to do something with inflammation or whether we need to shore up the immune system. The third thing that I look at is organ health. Now, we know that kidney and bladder are 2 very important organs, but we have to go upstream. So we start looking at things like, how are your adrenals doing? The adrenals sit on top of the kidneys, and they're these 2 tiny little walnut-shaped organs. They're responsible for our hormones and for our energy.
How are you testing for this health, by the way?
I actually will have people take tests. Now, I look first, when somebody first comes to me, I look at their symptoms. I start going through and asking a lot of questions. I have them fill out a questionnaire. Then, as I find out where things are going, there are a few tests I have them do. I have them do metabolic tests, so the organic acid test is one of them, and I send them to other people, either their doctor or I have people that I work with in my network that can help people get this testing.
Okay.
The other test I have people get is a mineral test. I want to look at their blood levels, their serum levels, and their hair tissue levels, and I want to get a sense of where their minerals are. And then the third thing that I do is I like to look at their genetics, because today we know with epigenetics that sometimes things happen that are related to our genes, and we can actually use things like nutrition, lifestyle, and supplements to turn those gene switches off. So I have them get a genetic test so that I can get, when you have mysteries, genes tell us where to go. So I really like to have that test if somebody comes to me with a mysterious condition.
Heather, what are some little-known nutritional considerations that we really need to look at when it comes to the kidneys, the urinary tract, the adrenals? I feel like there's an oxalate issue that's not being addressed.
And you got it, Christa. So oxalates is a compound that comes in what we would consider very healthy foods. Things like spinach, almonds, celery, kale, cruciferous vegetables, even chocolate, which so many of us love today. And the thing is, today we're talking about kidneys and bladder, so I want you to think about things that irritate you. Calcium oxalates irritate the body.
Really?
They basically create a sharp hard compound that lodges itself in any tissues, and it really goes after tissues that are inflamed. So if you have any inflammation anywhere, the oxalates run right there, and they're giving you a big punch. And so it can lodge in your brain, it can lodge in your kidneys and bladder. Now you've got stones. You've got kidney stones, you've got gallstones, you've got stones.
So avoid foods with oxalates.
Well, it's hard to
Or
do,
taper
but see,
off?
that's what you're saying is smart, Randy, because
Okay.
it's one way to do it is actually to go on a low oxalate diet. It's not a very exciting diet, but it can be short term while you're looking at the root cause. We're going to talk a little bit about the root cause
So
of
bloating,
oxalates.
things like that could be because
Bloating,
you have this.
irritation, frustration, depression,
Anxiety.
Yeah, all of these things have to do with anything that's irritating you. So think of your organs being irritated or your brain you're emotionally irritated. I would start looking at foods that irritate like oxalates. The other one is thiols. Nobody's ever heard of thiols. Thiols is another compound in very healthy foods. So things like asparagus or millet or quinoa, foods that we all think are really exciting, have thiols in it. Now, with a thiol's another irritation.
But now you mentioned asparagus. What other green vegetables would have it besides quinoa and those kind of things?
Cruciferous vegetables, the ones
Like
that we're told
broccoli?
to eat all the time. Broccoli, your
Really?
kale, your spinach, all the foods we're putting in smoothies all the time have thiols in them.
So actually, these foods that we're told to eat, these cruciferous vegetables, really boost and build our mitochondria. They can help with a laundry list of neurological issues. And so it's that we really need to heal the root cause, understand where we are now, heal from that with oxalates, and then these foods that aren't healthy for us now become healthy once again.
Okay, good. Now you were saying, I'm sorry.
So we go back to this idea of irritation. Oxalates and thiols can be irritating even for people in the nutrition industry because they are threshold compounds. What that means is that I can eat a certain number of oxalates foods or thiol foods today and have no symptoms. But if I go over my unique and special threshold, if this condition is alive for me, then what happens is I start to have symptoms. So when somebody says, well, what foods are you having trouble with? It changes almost every day because of the threshold. So it's irritating, again, and if you have irritation, you probably got kidney and bladder issues or may have them in the future. So that's one thing to think about. Now, thiols are an underlying issue to our sulfur metabolism. And I learned this through doing my nutrigenomics. I'm looking at people's genetics, and I'm finding out that people with the CBS gene mutation, that's like cystathionine beta synthase, which basically says you metabolize sulfur too quickly or possibly too slowly. Usually it's too quickly. If you have that switch turned on, you now have a problem with thiols. Where this creates an issue is, for the kidneys and bladder, is it can create trapped gas in the system. Trapped gas in the system means you're not digesting. Some people will have pain, some people won't have pain. But if somebody comes to me with incontinence and they say, I have it sometimes, I don't have it other times, maybe they've gone to their doctor and they've been prescribed medications.
It's what they're eating.
It's oftentimes underneath the incontinence is a bloating or a trapped gas issue. That's from the thiols. I'll usually take people off all vegetables that have high thiols, and they can eat things like avocados, animal proteins, fish, meat, poultry. Not eggs. Eggs are high in thiols, but they can eat a lot of sort of more of these strengthening animal foods, and that gets their body back in shape. Meanwhile, we work on the root causes, and then that's gone. And I've had a lot of people heal from incontinence issues.
Where could they find out more about this? One of your books? Which book is it that lays this out?
It's actually mostly on my website. So at heatherdane.com, people can go and they can find articles as well as recipes, because while somebody's on that low thiol diet, they want to be able to have fun eating, I mean, even
Interesting.
desserts, we want to have fun.
Christa, how come we haven't talked about this before?
Well, we're
I always
always
feel like
bringing up
Christa,
new things.
who's a brilliant nutritionist, but she doesn't fill me in on some of these things.
There's too much.
Am I too far gone,
That's why I'm
Christa?
choosing the guest to bring this new information.
This is a big intervention for me.
It's too much. I mean, some people are great at the
Yeah.
mitochondrial level. Some people are great at the genetic level. There's so much in nutrition. And
Yeah.
when you pair up, now you've got people putting their heads together. And that's why I think functional medicine is bringing us into a more team-based approach, which is fabulous.
But I have to mention this, by the way, and I was telling Christa, my collar hardly fits. And so 2 weeks ago, I'm thinking I'm going to make more salads at home, right? And so to flavor it up, I'm putting almonds, probably more, at least a handful, 2 sets a day of almonds, raw almonds, and I'm having sauteed spinach every single day.
And eggs, huh?
And eggs, 2 hard-boiled eggs, plus some eggs in the morning. And it's like, I've blown up.
There you go.
Like bloated.
You went over
None
your
of the
threshold.
others, yeah, so I'm over my
And
threshold.
you can swell in other areas besides just your digestive system.
It's been my abdomen is just bloated
And
out.
people think they've gained weight because your body looks like it's gained weight, and it actually can add weight to the scale. So this freaks
Yes.
people out, and it's actually just the fact that we're filled up with all kinds of swelling. Yeah, from the
Okay,
feels.
so I'm going to get off the thiols and the
Okay,
oxalates.
move on to the salicylates.
Enough about me. I'm sorry. I get hate mail from some of Krista's
Okay, no,
friends
it's
if I
not
ever
hate
talk
mail.
about myself. So I
I thought it was a good example.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right.
So we
So we'll
talked
continue.
about oxalates. We talked about thiols, and we're going to link back to your blog so you guys can read more about that. And we're going to talk about salicylates. But before we get there, the CBS genetic mutation that you talk about, Heather, can people ask their doctor to run this, or should they use 23andMe, or what's the? I mean, Randy will be our first guinea pig. Where do we start with him?
Well, you got it, Christa. We're going to do, I ask people to do 23andMe. So it's 23andme.com.
Okay.
And you do it in the mail. It's a saliva test, and then you get your results back. That is going to have to be, you either hand that to your nutritionist, or you hand
Krista.
it to
I'll
your
give it to Krista.
Krista, or you hand it to a functional medicine expert or an epigenetics expert, and they can now run you a report that will tell you if you have CBS. And if you're in trouble, go get the probiotic L-Casei, C-A-S-E-I.
Okay, so I'll take the test and we'll find out.
Take that probiotic. It will eat up that gas and bring the swelling down.
Let's
Okay.
do it soon. I have a 23andMe too. When I'm going to run
Okay.
one myself.
Okay, good.
We'll compare notes. So Heather, the balance of minerals in our human body. I mean, it literally makes or breaks every aspect of who we are. So what do you do if someone has, imbalanced calcium, magnesium? Copper is a big one. How do we restore mineral balance so that we don't have to worry so much about
How do you
all these
test
things?
it and how do you restore it?
So the first thing I'll do is when I get the genetic test and I hear that they've got the symptoms, and I say, okay, they've got mutations in the CBS enzyme, and I want to help them with it. I don't want them to be on a restricted diet for the rest of their life. I get a lot of people that call me and they say, I'm on 2 foods, that's all I can tolerate. That's what starts to happen when we start removing foods to deal with food intolerances. Pretty soon we're down to almost nothing. And what we can do is, these are signs. If you've got thiol issues, if you've got issues with oxalates, salicylates, what's happening is your minerals are not balanced. And so
Let me have you define salicylates real quick before we.
So they're another threshold compound in the body that can be found in foods. Tea. If you're a tea drinker, you may be getting irritated because there are salicylates in tea. If you have a UTI and you take cranberry juice, cranberries are high in salicylates. That could be aggravating the issue. So it's another area where you'd want to look up high salicylate foods and low salicylate foods and remove them and give your body some relief for a little while, just not forever.
Okay. So have you seen reversals? That means what you take the test, you do this, people feel better?
Yes. So I had Kathy, one of my clients, came to me. She had all the symptoms of CBS. We got the tests. Sure enough, she had 3
Symptoms which were?
Symptoms which were trapped gas, bloating, constantly distended. She felt like she was overweight, but sometimes she'd wake up in the morning and have a perfectly flat stomach, and then by the end of the day, her stomach would be pretty bloated.
Okay.
And she also had irritation, brain fog, and she'd have days where she just couldn't get out. She was exhausted, couldn't get out of bed. So we put her on the low thiol diet. I had her get an HTMA, which is a hair tissue mineral analysis. We found out where her minerals were, found out she was high in copper, and we're going to talk about that. So we put her on a diet that would reverse the high copper. We got the CBS enzyme fixed by getting all the thiol foods out of her diet, fixed that copper problem. Within 6 months, she was eating all the thiol foods with no symptoms.
So basically, use epigenetics to turn off the gene
To
for
turn the
CBS.
gene off, yeah. Exactly.
It's brilliant. It really is. This is
So you've seen this in your clinical practice as well?
Yeah, well, my clinical practice is epigenetics for fetal programming and also for gut health and digestive health to turn off autoimmune, help people with MTHFR genetic mutation. But this is new to me. The CBS is new, and it's fascinating. So copper, I think this is important. We try to bring new information to our viewers where they're like, oh, that might be it. And no one's talking about
Too much copper? Is that what we're talking about?
too
Not
much
enough copper.
Well, all of the whole
involved.
spectrum. Yeah.
Yes. Let's talk. You just run with it. Copper all day long.
Copper. So the thing about copper, I want you to think about minerals this way.
Okay.
Magnesium is the gateway mineral. Think of magnesium as parents in the house, and they've got 10 rebellious teenagers. When magnesium leaves the house, which happens when we get under stress, the first thing to go is magnesium. So think the parents have left the house, there's 10 rebellious teenagers at home, and they're going rogue.
Yes.
Copper goes rogue very quickly. If you have a vegetarian or vegan diet, you're putting the kind of copper into your body that actually doesn't have a protection already in it, and too much of that can create a copper overload. Copper can either be too high, too low, or you have plenty but your body is not using it properly. When that part is happening, you've got plenty but your body's not using it, it's called free copper, and it starts acting like a heavy metal in the body, and you start having heavy metal related symptoms.
Like?
You could have brain fog, you could have pain in your body, arthritis, you could have digestive issues.
Candida.
You could have candida.
Hair loss.
Hair loss, exactly.
So you
Thyroid
identify it,
issues.
so how do you make it lower then? Just
So
by...
I always have people get tested. I really like a hair tissue mineral test, which is an HTMA.
Test for everything.
Yes, and I always do because you can't fool with copper. I don't like to fool with the worst of the rebellious teenagers, and copper is one of the worst.
Okay.
And what keeps copper in check is its twin rebellious teenager, zinc. So you don't want to mess with zinc because it's going to affect copper, and you don't want to mess with copper because it'll affect zinc. So I like to have people get tested so we know what we're doing. And with copper, when you find out what's going on, is it bio-unavailable? Is it too high, too low? I like to have a blood test to back it up. And there's a professional named Morley Robbins at gotmag.org. He does the testing, and he and I have worked together on many cases. We've had a great experience working with people. We send people each other all the time. We do cases together on the phone with our clients sometimes. We've seen so many benefits from people getting their copper back in order again.
Back meaning lowered.
Yes.
Where their adrenals can finally heal and they get their life
So
back.
what about
They're
the
not in
copper tip
pain with bladder
IUD, things
pain.
like that?
So for something like an IUD, so now you've got a source of copper in your body. Copper water pipes are the same thing, but a copper IUD is now in your body and in your tissues, and that copper can leach into the body. So if you were low in copper for some reason, that might not be too much of a problem, but if you start to have a copper imbalance, it's going to create a lot of problems.
Now, will it correct on its own when you remove the IUD, or do you suggest some sort of chelation?
I suggest checking to see where your copper is, and if it's bio-unavailable, high or low, and dealing with that issue. Because anything else you do, you don't want to assume that it's in a certain place, because once you start messing with it, when you mess with zinc, so you mess with copper, you're now messing with its twin sister zinc, and what starts to happen is now digestion goes. You have anxiety. You've got other issues happening with your tissues. So I don't want to have anybody messing with that without us being sure where they're going.
Yeah, don't guess at it, test it is a good mantra.
Yes, exactly.
Heather, we completely bond on this, right? And I have gone through my own health challenges that not until I resolve the underlying emotion or belief system does it go away. And I've had countless clients that, okay, a lot of the physical stuff we're doing isn't making a difference until you get to the lifestyle and the emotions that could potentially cause things like kidney and bladder issues and urinary issues and adrenal fatigue. So
yes.
Tell us, what's your approach?
And, you know, Christa, you're right about
So
that.
what was her question, by the way? Help me understand.
What
She was
was
saying
Christa's
that there's
question?
the emotional component of
Emotions
this?
matter.
Okay.
Lifestyle matters. And actually, the World Health Organization came out saying we used to have disease and illness from infection, and now we have disease and illness from lifestyle. Lifestyle includes your emotions. So we have evidence in science right now saying that if we have certain emotions are passed through the DNA, and they're passed through our genes. And sometimes when we heal the emotional issue, we're actually healing the physical issue as well. So I do a lot of work with Dr. Mona Lisa Schultz. She's an MD and she's a PhD in behavioral science, and she's scientifically mapped emotional centers that go with each organ and system in the body. So we had a lot of discussion about urinary and kidney. And your urinary tract and your kidney are in your second and third emotional centers. So I would ask people, what's going on with your relationship? Do you have any issues with love and money? Any struggles with your spouse, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, whatever it is? And I also like to ask,
Krista's laughing. Why is it so
I'm
funny?
just wondering how you're processing this.
I'm
Do you
only
think-
processing. Well, no, I don't have a relationship right now, so I
Okay.
can't even get a date. And you're talking about this, so this is affecting my emotions.
But it can, yeah, it can. Even if you don't have somebody in your life and you want someone.
Okay,
in
so
your
you've
life.
identified that they've got emotional problems.
Yes.
So now you outsource them to a professional to help them?
Well, here's the thing. There's a lot that I can do with my clients. I
Okay.
used to have an adrenaline lifestyle. I
Like a
worked a
type A,
12-hour
okay.
day. I was a corporate executive. I thought that the world rested on my shoulders, and if anybody told me to do less, I would get really angry. I was invested in my hamster wheel. There was no white space on my calendar, and there was no time for self-care. That's an adrenaline lifestyle. That means
Yeah,
stress.
I can relate to that.
What goes with stress? First, magnesium and your B vitamins. Everything that makes you well and everything that makes you feel happy.
So
Gone.
then the adrenals, then the immune system,
Yes,
whatever order is
everything
your
goes.
specific, right, with too
Yeah.
much stress.
So we know this, we know what the cascade is, but now we've got science telling us with epigenetics that this is actually true from a DNA perspective. So that's always good
Which
for
is
us.
beautiful, the blend of science and spirituality. And I know that you said, unfulfilled desires of the soul. How does that play a role in health? And when I worked with clients with urinary and bladder issues, to Heather's point, I would work with something called the healing codes, which helps identify underlying beliefs, right? So if she's talking about not feeling safe in your relationship, maybe you're not trusting that person, but you can't say it, so your body's going to tell you what's going on until you face it. And so that's really what we're talking about, and it's inextricable. So what is this when you talk about unfulfilled desires of the soul? What does that mean?
Well, part of my own healing from my adrenaline lifestyle and going from my corporate lifestyle to becoming a health coach, I actually went back to my Native American roots. I'm an Iroquois Oneida Indian.
All right.
And I actually went back and studied Native American medicine, which is not that far off from Chinese medicine, actually. And one of the big issues in Native American medicine is unfulfilled desires of the soul. Now, why I know that this works is before I realized that, I started working as a business coach. I left corporate, and I thought the most legitimate thing I could do, even though I studied nutrition in college and my passion is in natural health, I actually went into business coaching. I had every client write a vision for what they wanted to do with their life. The vision was, if you had no family, no obligations, all the money in the world, and no responsibilities, what would you do? And when they wrote that vision and we started moving them towards that vision, 100% of my clients got healthier. Total side effect.
Interesting.
I started health coaching from there. I said, yeah, I've got to do this. Look, I didn't even do anything with their nutrition and they all got healthier. So I started doing health coaching, and that's when I started adding more nutrigenomics and epigenetics and things like that to my practice, and I watched everybody get healthy as well. Knowing what it is you love to do, your body has illness and symptoms because that's how it speaks to you. You cannot get away with not doing something you really want to do. We all came here with a purpose and passion.
This is very nice. In the green room, Christa, one of the things you said, because you have a clinical practice, huge following for people that know you, they've watched the show. But you said you're returning back to your roots of mind, body, and soul, right?
Yeah.
So we live in a toxic world. You got all this toxic burden, adrenal problems, eating gluten, all the things we're oscillates, everything you're talking about. Okay, but there's that emotional component.
Yeah.
That mind, body component. So
If you don't address that, you're going to spend thousands of dollars and you're going to lose a lot of quality of life stuck in this almost like an OCD
But is that the
hamster
most
wheel of
difficult
trying
part?
to get to
look,
the root of it.
You can eliminate the bad foods, right? Maybe take some of the supplements, but isn't that the toughest part? Getting over your childhood, getting over the relationships, detaching from your type A life? Is that the most difficult?
It's acknowledging them and working on them that starts the healing.
Okay.
Because our body wants us to know what we need to do to live a better life. And if we were to put our hands on a part of our body where we have a symptom and say, what do you want me to know? I laughed when somebody told me to do that. I wasn't sitting in my office in my corporate job and my suit, and somebody said, how do you feel? I'm like, I feel pain. That's all. What do you mean? And eventually I started listening to the symptom and listening to what the meaning was for me, and that's when I understood what was going on. We can learn so much without getting any tests at all if we just start listening to our heart and soul and listening to our body.
Okay, good.
Amen.
So, Chris, we're almost out of time. I want to thank you for. Now, you've got both books. How do we get in touch with your books? You have The Bone Broth Secret.
Bone Broth Secrets.
And
Loving Yourself to Great Health.
All right.
You can get both books on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and most bookstores.
Okay, Christa, I know you wrote a list of questions. We have time for a few more.
No, I just want your we love to leave our viewers with action items so that they're really getting healthier as a result of watching each show. And so what are your final words, some lifestyle changes everyone can make that will support their own healing if they're dealing with anything that we've spoken about today?
Okay,
Yeah,
so
good
I'm going to
question.
offer a few tips. One would be start adding minerals back into your diet. The easiest way to do this without testing, the easiest and safest, is just to put 1/4 of a teaspoon of sea salt or Himalayan salt into a full cup of water, 8 ounces. You can add some lemon juice, about 6 ounces. That makes a great adrenal cocktail. It's fabulous. If you don't want to do that, you can take a supplement called Anderson's CMD, SEAMD, or you can take like a concentrate, which is another type of mineral supplement. Add a little bit to your water. Now you're going to find you've got more energy.
First thing in the morning.
You can do it first thing in the morning. You can do it throughout the day. Just add it to your water bottles throughout the day. Great tip. I will guarantee you'll feel better. Every one of my clients calls me 2 weeks later.
All right.
Okay. The next one that I would say is to really look at that. Make a vision. Figure out what your unfulfilled desires are. You don't have to know how you're going to fix them. You don't have to say, gee, if I know this, then it's not going to look good to me. Your body will tell you anyway. So you might as well get it down on paper, figure out what it is, okay? And then the third thing is, if there's any way to reduce stress, to look at your calendar and give yourself some time for self-care. You know, this isn't popular with people who are busy, but this is one of the best things, because even 5 extra minutes, even 10 extra minutes a day, where you are just thinking, meditating, thinking about yourself, taking care of yourself, maybe making a meal in the kitchen, something healthy and whole in the kitchen can make a huge difference.
All right.
The intention of nurturing yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now with magnesium you mentioned, I want to ask you, because there's glycinate,
Yes.
there's chelate, there's another one.
Yes.
So what's the best one? Like at night?
There's a variety, and I would recommend that if you're just trying this out on your own, magnesium's a pretty safe supplement to take. And if you want to be safe, go for 5 milligrams per pound of body weight. So that's about 600 milligrams for a 120-pound woman. And what you can do is you just look at, there's taurate, which is a great one. Malate is a great one. I would skip citrate, which is the one that heart doctors always tell you to take. Citrate wrecks a protein called ceruloplasmin, which helps us deliver copper safely through the body. I wouldn't want anybody to deplete that. So I would skip that one. I would look at L-threonate, great for the brain. If you've got any brain fog, L-threonate is fabulous. It's great before bed, and it's great if you've got pain. Glycinate is wonderful. If you have digestive issues or mood issues and you find glycinate makes things worse, put it aside.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I want to thank you for coming on the show. Great stuff. We're going to have you back to talk about the bone broth secret and angry vegans. That's on our next show. We talked about that.
Yes.
All right. Krista?
Oh, thanks for being here, Heather. We could talk all day. We can't wait to have you back.
Thank you, Christa.
You've been watching the Randy and Krista show. I'm Randy Alvarez. We have Christa Orecchio. For now, we wish you good health.